Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of the Square Post podcast. Today, me and Sam are going to start a series that we have tentatively called the Anatomy of a Wrestler, which is similar to what we did with John Cena, except in this series we'll focus on one wrestler in particular, and we'll focus on their career, their inspiration, and the highlights. As always, I'm Daniel, and that's Sam. And today we're starting off with one of my favorite wrestlers, Bryan Danielson. Sam, how you been?
Doing good. I'm excited for this week's episode. Like Dan said just a moment ago, we're going to be talking about one of the greatest of all time, Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson, for me, he was the first post-punk indie darling in WWE. He still had that indie darling feel. Meanwhile, Seth and Moxley, on the other hand, Moxley still felt like John Moxley in WWE, but Rollins was a completely different guy. He wasn't Tyler Black anymore. He completely evolved in WWE. He became Seth Rollins in WWE.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I think Danielson really benefited from Punk leaving, because a lot of people that supported Punk and loved Punk, they then put their support behind Bryan Danielson because he was, as you said, still Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
He was Daniel Bryan, but everyone
it was
loved.
Literally a lighter version of Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
With longer hair, and
sometimes when he first came, he had really short hair. We can sit here and we can talk about all his accomplishments, but I think everybody knows his accomplishment. He has probably one of the best resumes in all of current modern day professional wrestling.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we could and we could also talk about his inspirations, because and I know Toshiaki Kawada is probably one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and he is one of Danielson's favorite wrestlers of all time.
And Danielson's always mentioned one of the guys actually that he's in a team with now in AEW in William Regal.
Yes,
and he has both Regal and Danielson have put each other over the years, and Danielson especially has said he's that his hero, literally to a T.
Yes.
Move for move, the style that you see Bryan Danielson do is very much with a William Regal
influence.
Yeah. And you can see that even in his wrestling now.
Yes. And Regal called Danielson the perfect wrestler, which I don't think is too far off. Yeah. So I guess we can start talking about the early roads of Danielson's career. He started, I think most people know, he was trained with under Shawn Michaels and Rudy Boy Gonzalez. And then he kind of did a lot of things. He was with WWE for a little bit. He was in the developmental.
Yeah.
And then his career really skyrocketed in ROH, where he is considered one of the founding fathers, and he was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was in the first main event with Christopher Daniels, and Low-Ki, which Low-Ki won, which is a choice considering the other guys as we know them now. But that didn't stop Danielson. He still did his thing, and he became ROH champion for, I think,
he became a fucking star there.
Yes. Everything we know about Bryan Danielson started in ROH. Most of besides the Yes chants, which we'll get into in a little bit.
We'll get into that in a little bit,
Yes, but his I Got Till 5, his Danielson, the chants that everyone...
that you're gonna get your fucking head kicked in.
Yes.
Chants there. That's actually in his current AEW theme.
Yeah, except it's bleeped out, so. But...
But
Danielson became Danielson in ROH, and he helped in its most popular time, you had like Samoa Joe, CM Punk. You also had Danielson. Danielson was a constant from like 2002.
Those were like the Mount Rushmore of Ring of Honor. Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and I want to say it's a toss-up between Generico and Steen.
And I would say Christopher Daniels too.
Daniels too.
He was the first major heel. But Danielson became he was a legend kind of, but it was to like the ROH crowd and the indie crowd, which I think we've established on the show. We weren't really a part of back all the way in like 2005, 2006.
Yeah, we were just starting.
Yeah.
So we didn't know what the indies were until
he was already there. Yeah,
Punk and Danielson came to WWE.
Yeah, he came around 2009, and I think a lot of people's first thing was NXT season 1.
Yeah,
where he had the Miz as a pro,
which is quite hilarious. Just for the sake of like, Danielson's like the ultimate indie darling, and like
Miz is the ultimate WWE guy.
Yeah, and like that the whole dynamic was Miz wanted to change everything about Danielson and like make Danielson into like this ultra like presentation guy. Meanwhile, Danielson just wants to beat people up. That's what his whole motivation going into NXT post FCW.
Yeah,
because he was in FCW for like maybe a month before the NXT show started.
It wasn't that long because, and then in 2010, we don't have to get into all of it. He went back to the Indies briefly, and then he got re-signed, this time as a face.
Yeah, and to take over Miz's spot. In one of my favorite 10-man tags.
Yeah, that was the wrong team won, but yeah, that was a good match.
Yeah. As a kid, I was so happy though.
Yeah, same. He had a decade-long career in the WWE, so we're not going to go through all of it. I think there's a lot better.
We're just going to go through the big moments.
Yeah, there are a lot more people better equipped to do all of it. But
that can go through all of that in the short amount of time.
Yes. So we're just going to talk about our favorite moments.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
we can start right away with the WrestleMania 28 match, the 18-second match.
Yes.
Because to me, I think that was the start of everything for Bryan Danielson in WWE.
That was bad. Yeah, that was. I think it hurt Sheamus too.
But like, it started the yes chant. It started getting Danielson over. If you think about it, if it wasn't for that chant, Danielson wouldn't have been presented as a future world champion, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yes, but also I think we need to talk about his heel run right before everything happened.
Yeah.
His crazy, psychotic, jealous, possessive behavior was weird, but it was good TV.
Yeah.
And it got us the CM Punk Danielson feud for the first time in WWE. Yeah. They had some good matches.
Yeah.
And hopefully
they had at least one more before Punk hangs it up.
Yes. Hopefully they'll have a few more.
And I think Punk has said he wants to team with Danielson too. So I'm not against that either. I would love that. Like Punk and Danielson versus FTR. After the week FTR's had.
Yes.
I would fucking love that.
That would be fun. Even Danielson and Mox against FTR.
Yeah. Which we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah. So that started the whole upward swing where like people weren't too happy because a lot of people love Bryan Danielson.
And like Cena was holding down on the heavyweight division.
Yeah. And Cena even put him over once. He was like, my opponent's Bryan Danielson. But also, I think an important part to talk about is CM Punk's exit.
Yeah.
From WWE.
It's an important part because it brings us to where we are now.
Yeah, because CM Punk's exit, I feel like Bryan Danielson is not Bryan Danielson if CM Punk never walks away. I mean, Daniel Bryan will never be what Daniel Bryan became if CM Punk never walks away. Because I think before then he was scheduled to have a match with Kane at WrestleMania.
He was supposed to have a match with Kane, and Punk was supposed to wrestle Hunter, and unfortunately, of course, we know what happened with Punk walking out and everything. But I think they were able to turn that into a positive, and really, like,
I don't put that so much on.
Fortunately, turn Bryan into a star organically.
Yeah, I don't put that so much on WWE. I put that on the fans because
that's what I'm saying. Like, the fans, were able to do that.
I think after Punk, because like Punk was the first indie darling. Like everyone loved. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people loved Punk. So when he walked out, because of all the, we don't have to talk about that. We can talk about that for a whole episode. He walked out and people were like, well, we love this dude too. So we're not going to let you do to him what you did to Punk. So we're just going to cheer him and make him a fucking star. We're going to make you push him. But this isn't about WWE. This is about Bryan Danielson. So we all know what happened at WrestleMania 30. Danny Simmons.
The iconic moment of Danielson being on his knees with the undisputed WWE Universal Championship.
Yes. And Bryan is a main man.
Confetti on him. And
yes, Daniel Bryan is a main man.
Yeah.
Another thing we haven't talked about is Team Hell No.
Yeah, we have to mention that.
Yes.
Those segments were great. To me, it was everything we needed in late 2012, early 2013. Like, this was basically RK Bro, but before
RK Bro, and I think better, in my opinion.
Better 100%.
Yeah, those
two have great chemistry.
Yeah, those two have great chemistry. And in doing so, Daniel Bryan became a tag team champion. Which is very important because when you talk about Daniel Bryan, you have to mention he's a Grand Slam champion and Triple Crown. Yeah. He pretty much won everything there is to win. I think
he won the US, he won IC, he won the
WWE. Yeah, he won the
undisputed title.
Yeah, he won the World Heavyweight title.
He won the World Heavyweight title. And I think he won the WWE title individually as well.
Yeah, he was a 4-time winner, 3 times individual as the WWE champion. One time when it was unified. All this to say is Daniel Bryan was really good.
Yeah, and I'll put it out there that his match, I think one of his most underrated matches, I would say, is the match at Fastlane with Roman.
Yes,
I thought that was a really good match, and really like the build up towards Mania 31 for Bryan was very interesting. I think putting him in that ladder match was interesting because of what happened after and like what it led to. And
I think because I don't think they wanted another WrestleMania 30 situation. They were like, the fans got WrestleMania 30. We're not going to let them have WrestleMania 31, which is really weird, but it's WWE.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yes. But my point was that I know a lot of people think it was pretty much like sleepwalking for Daniel Bryan, but Daniel Bryan became a made man in WWE. I mean, Bryan Danielson became a made man in WWE.
Yeah. And he made some friggin' money in WWE. Like,
yes.
Like, he wasn't getting the $250K that Hunter was talking about there.
Yes. And like, he met his wife. So I don't think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, by the way, shout out to Brie. She's great.
Yeah. So I guess now it's time to talk about another one of Bryan Danielson's influences, since we talked about his WWE career, in Dean Malenko. Yeah. Who is probably one of the most gifted technical wrestlers out there. And you can't talk about technical wrestling without Bryan Danielson, and you can't talk about Bryan Danielson without technical wrestling. He has a whole award named after him for technical wrestling.
Bryan Danielson, like, he is everything Pure Wrestling and Ring of Honor was at earlier on.
Yes.
Like he literally like created that pure division.
Him and Nigel. We need
Yeah.
if we're talking about rivals, him and Nigel were like the perfect rivals. Babyface, Danielson, heel Nigel. Well, like they were polar
And
opposites
Nigel was
in a
the
way.
perfect heel.
Yes.
Like I know Rollins has gone on, I believe on the table for 3 with Nigel, saying that he feared Nigel. Like
everyone. Nigel, like I
Like
wasn't
he-
watching at the time, but like looking back, Nigel McGuinness was amazing in
Yeah.
his role.
he had a great match with Claudio in Ring of Honor before Claudio left.
Yes.
Yeah,
the bleach blonde hair was amazing. Was a lot.
It's iconic.
Yeah.
Nigel's running in Impact should have been better.
Yes. We can talk. We can spend a whole episode talking about.
That's going to be a whole episode in itself. I would assume.
Yeah. But yeah, Danielson as a face, and the thing with Danielson was
let's just say this: that Danielson is great at both.
Yeah, he could turn heel on a dime.
Yeah,
like he did in Ring of Honor. After he won the world title, he started using low blows and stuff, but like everybody loved him. So like it was like a tweener because like he was still
it was basically Moxley.
Yes, he was loved because he is Bryan Danielson.
Which, by the way, Moxley should have his own episode because he's an interesting guy too.
Yes. And we can talk about Nick Gage and Onita in that episode because like you cannot tell me that Moxley does not get some stuff.
He has some shit to fucking talk about those two guys.
Yes. But Bryan Danielson, I don't want to say revolutionized, but like he took what those guys like Dean Malenko, like those not junior heavyweights, but like those smaller guys.
Essentially.
William Regal. We talked about Regal, but like those smaller guys that a lot of people didn't look at as like big stats, and he revolutionized what technical wrestling meant, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And we see that with
we see that in Gresham, like
Zack Sabre Jr. Who beat Danielson at his own award, and Danielson was very upset after he left.
Yeah,
I want to see that match too, but that's another story.
And Gresham versus Danielson should happen soon in ROH.
Yeah,
if they're gonna do it anywhere, it has to be in ROH.
Yeah,
and now that Tony has Danielson and has ROH, he can do that.
Yeah, I think if Lethal and Gresham is a TV main event, which I hope it is, I think the first ROH pay-per-view is Danielson versus Gresham.
Should be.
Yes.
100%. Gresham should beat Lethal in like minimum 10 minutes.
I mean, I think Tony likes Lethal for reasons, so I think he'll give him some time, but like I do want to see
I didn't say like it's gonna be like a 10-second match. No.
Yeah.
I know it's gonna be at least 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's gonna get some time.
I want to see Joe Moriarty and Gresham versus the Blackpool Combat Club. Like, give me that match.
that would be very good.
Yeah. Speaking of
I think before we get further into Daniel's career, I think we have to mention his time as SmackDown general manager.
Yes, that's
his that whole thing is going to be an episode in itself, but
2016 was a time for WWE.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
Yeah,
on all 3 brands, really. All 3 brands were rocking full through, like they were hitting everything. But the kitchen sink really.
Yeah, because
Danielson was GM. Moxley was WWE champion.
That was fun.
They had Cena in the IC title little circle there.
They had the SmackDown 6, the only 6 women on the roster, and they made it work.
Yeah, and the women they had on there was great. And to me, Carmella will always be synonymous with SmackDown.
Yeah,
for like the rest of her career.
She should have been.
Because
She never should have been. She never should have been drafted to Raw, in my opinion.
yeah, her and Becky, like they are the SmackDown people.
Yeah.
Like Becky and Charlotte are the SmackDown horsewomen without a doubt. It's pretty clear because of how long they were there. And really, I'll just say this just to save time for when we do an episode on that year in WWE. I'll just say this, that 2016 in WWE was a lot of fun.
Yes.
There was a lot of things that happened.
Yes.
We're gonna have a shit ton of notes for it.
It was
it's gonna
great
be a
time to
fun
be
episode
watching.
once we get to do that.
Yeah, it was a great time to be watching WWE. But we can't talk about Danielson's general manager run without talking about what led to it, which was his injuries. That was a bad. I still remember his retirement speech.
Me too.
And I also remember when he came back. But like, let's talk about retirement first.
That return, it was so cool. Just you can tell how big of a smile Mick Foley had on his face. Like Mick knew this was a big moment.
Yeah. But yeah, I think everybody knows we won't spend too much time. Like Danielson had to retire because of concussions. And we all also know, like if you paid attention to WWE at the time, Danielson wanted to wrestle.
Yeah, he wanted badly. Granted, it took him 4 years, but he got there.
Yeah, because I didn't watch Total Divas, but I still remember that clip of Danielson at lunch with with Bree's with Bree's family, and him just talking about wrestling, and Bree just being like, I think
they knew how much Danielson wanted to just beat the shit out of people. Like
if you watched at the time,
him and TJ Wilson, they have the same wavelength when it comes to living life. Like all they want to do is wrestling.
TJ said he was happy with just producing, but if you were watching at the time, you knew how badly Danielson wanted to wrestle, and you knew how badly everyone on the internet wanted him to wrestle, because everyone was just like, maybe WWE should release him, because if all these doctors are cleaning him and WWE's aren't, then maybe they should release him. But they didn't, and they ended up giving him the all clear.
They also were close to letting him run free in 2018 before.
Yes. But I mean, I don't think that was ever going to.
They were close, but they weren't completely like willing to let him go.
Yeah, just because they knew who they had. Like, let's be honest.
They knew they had one of the goats of wrestling.
Yes, they did not treat him like such for most of his reign, but that's enough. Anyway, and then SmackDown GM was fun, and his return speech. That is probably one of the most well-known return speeches. Besides, at the Edge didn't have a return speech, so it's because like unlike a lot of people that like just return, like, oh hey, they're back.
But they let Danielson.
He had his moment.
Fight for your dreams, or your dreams will fight for you.
Yes.
And like that whole speech, like it even went on ESPN, for God's sakes. Like
Danielson was loved.
Like nobody in WWE was getting that at that point. Like at that point, they were just like maybe interviewing people. Like nothing was on SportsCenter or anything around that time.
Yes.
But Danielson got literally his entire speech on ESPN before WWE put it up on their YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't tell me how loved Bryan Danielson is, I don't know what is.
Yeah. And then he came back and he had a good run, I think. His last couple of years.
Yeah, his last 2-3 years in WWE was very good.
Yeah.
Everything from the match against KO and Sammy with Shane.
Yeah, I was going to. That storyline was fun.
Yeah, everything from that, which I love that immediately right after the speech, they immediately had him take bumps, which was
Yeah, I think he was begging for that. He was just like, yes, let me take bumps. Let me take bumps. It's Danielson.
yeah,
Danielson loves to
he
wrestle.
was ready to just take the crazy shit.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later because like there's a whole section that wanted, but yeah, he was ready. And we all know how his run ended. Like he became, it's now a meme that every time there's a triple threat opportunity, here comes Bryan Danielson.
Yeah.
Because of that 2020 year or 2021.
Late 2020, early 2021.
Yes.
But speaking of 2020, Bryan Danielson, I just want to mention the match against Drew Gulak, the first time at the Rumble.
Yes, that
was a friggin' clinic.
Yes,
I was sitting here going, "Holy shit, this is good."
We didn't mention.
I knew that was going to be a classic.
We didn't mention him, but Drew Gulak is pretty good at this technical wrestling stuff. If they let him,
yeah. His whole run on 205, I think, should have an episode in itself.
The PowerPoint, yeah. But Danielson, like he came back, he was just like, yeah, I can wrestle now. Let me wrestle. Let me take. Well, don't take. He didn't take too many crazy bumps because Vince would not have let him. But yeah, he came back and he came back full throttle. He was just like, yeah, I can wrestle, so I'm going to wrestle.
He knew how much he could take in, but WWE, of course, was trying to limit him.
Yeah, because we talked about it before. Bryan Danielson's mind is on one thing, and that is wrestling. He could have retired. He could have just, after the concussions and everything, he could have just been like, nope, you know what? I think I'm good. I'll be a stay home. We can do all this stuff and I'll just be stay home. But he was like, nope, let me wrestle. I want to wrestle.
Yeah, he knew that like gardening was only going to be like an eighth job.
Yeah. Before we talk about his exit for like actually, we need to talk about his heel run. The Eco Champ.
Yes.
It's probably one of the greatest things in modern WWE. And it got us Kofi Mania. It got us Mustafa Ali on SmackDown. Yeah. It got us that weird storyline with the doppelganger, but that's
with
another
Red Beard
issue.
and all that. Yeah.
Yes, that's another issue.
And Buddy Matthews.
And the Eco title was us.
That actually looked dope.
Yeah.
You can probably still buy it on WWE Shop for like $300.
Yeah. The Kofi Mania was a moment in itself, though.
Yeah, which we'll get into that on a Kofi episode.
Yes,
because I think even his career in general should be talked about.
Yes,
on this series.
Yes, but we all know what happened. He lost at Mania, and then he tried to put up. Well, he didn't try to put over Cesaro. He was just like, "Yeah, Cesaro is pretty great too," and we know what happened with that.
Yeah.
But then he lost to Roman, and everyone thought it was because he was going to Raw, and then like Sean Rossap, he was just like, "No, actually, his contract's running out." Yeah. And nobody believed it and then Bryan Danielson did the most Bryan Danielson thing ever. He didn't say a word for 5 months. Yeah, he didn't say, "Oh, by the way." Yeah, he didn't say, "My contract is up." Wink, wink. Yeah, he didn't. He didn't say anything. He didn't tweet. All he said in interviews was put over Darby Allin, put over like a lot of people in AEW. Yes. Like he is aware of what's going on around in wrestling. Yeah. Like because he wasn't one of these WWE guys that is just so locked in on the bubble. Yeah. And it's also important to talk about like back in 2018, 2019, when AEW was just like in its infancy, Danielson did a interview and he talked about how he might not go there, but he thinks it's great because like the wrestling economy gets better if there are more companies and more places for people to work. So he's a smart guy. Like, I don't think anyone can disagree that Bryan Danielson is a smart guy. So he's always been aware that, wrestling needs, more than one major company. Yeah. So, and then, but he did not say a word. He did not say he kept he
Yeah.
he didn't even he barely tweeted in WWE. He tweets a lot more now, but like back then,
Yeah.
he was just like
It,
he went
yeah,
radio silent.
back in WWE, all he was using is tout.
Yes. And then CM Punk happened. CM Punk's return started
Yeah.
making the airwaves. Then Adam Cole's contract came up. And
Yeah.
Bryan
When
Danielson
Adam
was still,
Cole's contract came up, that's when everybody started being like, hey, is Danielson coming to AEW?
yes.
Is Danielson coming to AEW, Sean?
Yes,
And like,
because like there were three major stories: Punk, Cole, Danielson. And then you had Adam Page's story.
yeah.
So there were like four major stories at that time. So Danielson could get away with silence because like everyone was like, hey, Adam Cole's up. Is he returning? He's Hunter scared. Is he returning? CM Punk. Is CM Punk actually coming back? What's CM Punk going to do now? And so then you had Danielson just be like, yeah, I'm still here. And then
Yeah.
at All Out.
Yeah.
We
All
only
Out
thought there
was
would be
probably
one.
one of the better debuts
Yes.
in the history of AEW so far.
We thought there would only be one.
Yeah. We knew Cole was coming that night. We didn't know Danielson.
Yes.
Because Danielson was slated to debut at Grand Slam.
Yeah. At Arthur Ashe.
Which ended up being Grand Slam.
It's the same thing. But he didn't. He debuted it All Out. And that pop.
Yeah, that pop was something else, man. Like that the pop for Cole was huge, but a pop for Danielson was even bigger.
Yes. And then we have probably one of the greatest matches
Of all time.
Yes. I was going to say 2020 onwards, but sure. Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega.
At Grand Slam.
Yes.
Which, like we said, it's one of the best matches we both have ever seen.
Yeah. That match
I stood there. I don't think I even touched my phone once during that match.
I was just fixated on that match.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I was literally going, holy shit. I knew how big this match was. I knew like how iconic this is going to be in a few years.
Yeah, because
we'll look back on this in 5-6 years and realizing
it'll still be one of the best matches of all time.
Yeah.
And Danielson got the treatment no one else did. Like no one else came from WWE and immediately went like face the world champion.
No. And that goes to show how much Tony likes him.
Yeah.
And Tony even said like way back in the day on his Twitter in like 2012, like he on his Twitter in 2012, Tony has always put over Punk and Danielson and Joe. He's like
he's a big ROH fan.
Big early 2000s ROH guy.
Yes. And then Danielson went through the eliminator and he got himself a world title shot. And then he had himself another draw, which a lot of people were like questioning. But then it led us to another great match, which was the sequel with Hangman Adam Page. But first of all, we need to talk about that 60-minute match because Danielson bled in that 60-minute match. When they opened the show,
one thing. Yes, I would have loved to have seen in that Mania 30 match.
Winston never going to, because like I think
if you look at Danielson's resume, that Mania 30 match is 100% going to be on there, but it's not going to be as high as those two matches.
Because Danielson in an interview where he was just like, yeah, I want to bleed, and Vince was like, well, I can't really let you do that here. But yeah, that 60-minute match with Page was, I think that match didn't make Page's title name, but the match after that did.
Yeah.
The one where he beat. Both Page and Danielson bled a lot, though. Like, it was almost worrying.
It was a perfect feud.
Yes.
I mean, going through the Dark Order to get to Hangman was great.
And
the only thing is, we still need Danielson versus Anna Jay. It needs to happen. It would be amazing.
The thing is that I was shocked
Danielson fears NJ. I'll just say that.
I was shocked that Danielson won the World Title Eliminator because I was like, Paige's storyline is still very new, so you don't want to like split the audience.
Yeah.
And instead, Danielson turned full heel, and it worked.
Yeah, and it led to where we are now.
Yes, because
which we'll get into in a little bit here.
Yes, but that second match, like I said, it made Paige's title reign so far.
Yeah,
that match was something else.
Yeah, that was very good.
Yes, and Paige won, and Paige became Danielson's first loss. Like MJF was Punk's first loss. But Paige won, and Danielson didn't go back to like the drawing board. He didn't like get slotted into like the first opening match. He came back and he had a pretty big storyline, which we can talk about.
Yeah.
Because around that same time, John Moxley left for to rehab, which like we all support. We all in favor of rehab and like therapy and whatever you need to do to get healthy and healthy here at Square Post Podcast.
And seeing John Moxley healthy again, it makes me smile because that shows that like him and Renee are doing good and like everything's going smoothly, which is great. I love that. Shout out to Moxley for wanting to do that, and like
Moxley's one of the best, I think, in my opinion, and we can talk about but yeah, Moxley came back, and like you could tell the plans before he left for Danielson versus Moxley in a feud. And everyone was like, how are they going to do that now? Moxley's a face, but Danielson was a heel, so they could have done it like that. But instead, they gave us one of the best tag teams of the. And I love tag team wrestling. I can spend. We did do a show on tag team wrestling, and we'll do another one soon because I have thoughts. But they were just like, let's just put these two guys together and see what happens. And like that match, they had a revolution, and we can talk about other things that happened in Revolution. But that match they had a Revolution was bloody. But I do have to say this. That was the most obvious blading I've seen in my entire life. Danielson, I love you.
That was the worst shot.
I spent a whole episode talking about how much I love you.
I was sitting there going, no way. I was like, that's clear. That's shot in the dark. Like you can tell it was an actual like blade.
Yeah, like you could tell he was reaching into his wrist tape. Like, and it was obvious that he was reaching into wrist tape. They didn't need to they could cut to the crowd, but that's another story for a different time. But that match was brawl. Danielson
beat the fuck out of each other.
Danielson did Moxley's style, and it worked because we talk about Kawada and Misawa are two of Danielson's biggest influences.
He used a lot of that energy in this match.
And anyone that knows like King Rhodes or anyone that's paid attention to Eddie Kingston's career at all knows that King Rhodes is pretty much not how much you can beat someone up, it's how much you can get beat and still get up. And Danielson did that. And but he lost the match. And that leads us into the next one because Danielson was not going to go quietly. He was not a fan. So which
by the way, I just want to point out, you mentioned Eddie Kingston. That match against Eddie on Rampage was absolutely amazing. And I think before we get to the Blackpool Combat Club, I just have to mention that match against Minoru Suzuki. That's another iconic match.
TK dropped that cold on like Wednesday night.
It was Thursday on morning. A pre-show of all things.
TK was just like, hey,
it wasn't even on TV. It was on YouTube, for God's sakes.
Yes. TK was just like,
hey, just was smoking that IWC pack. Like this dude.
You were just like, hey guys, I got a match for you, and it's Danielson versus Suzuki. Have fun.
And everyone went, holy shit, on Twitter. Like,
I remember Suzuki did an interview. He was just like, I was in line at a cafe. My agent called. He was like, hey, what are you doing Friday? And we have a match for you versus Bryan Danielson. And Suzuki was like, I'll be there. He probably didn't say it like that, but I can't really do
No, but
Suzuki's accent.
he went there, beat the fuck out of
Yeah.
Danielson. Danielson beat the fuck out of him.
That was such a
and
great
just
match.
Had an iconic like clinic.
And I would argue that Danielson versus Kingston, where Kingston lost, is why Kingston's where he is right now. Because
Yeah,
like Kingston was doing great
100%.
work. He was fighting Miro for the TNT title, but he was
Yeah.
also kind of not in the position he was now, because like it
Yeah.
was just like, hey, there's Eddie Kingston. People love him. We can beat him. That match,
Yeah,
and then the
that
CM
loss
Punk
was
feud.
monumental for him.
Yes, that the CM Punk feud proved that no matter what, no one's going to boo Eddie Kingston, because people love CM Punk. Like I love CM Punk. We talked about CM Punk.
Yeah,
how much
I
we love
literally
CM.
have a Punk shirt.
Yes, but if you give me Eddie Kingston and CM Punk, guess who I'm going to boo? Because I refuse to boo Eddie Kingston.
CM Punk.
Yes, except for that weird time in TNA where like Eddie Kingston was against Conan, but that's because I love Santana Ortiz and Diamante.
Yeah. And shout out to LAX.
Yes. But yeah, but so yes, because Danielson, like he loves wrestling. He's
you can tell.
But he's also like he's not afraid to put people over. Because
he
like we talked about before, like
he knows
mindset
what his role is now.
Yeah, he's just like Danielson's mindset is he's not like we talk about where we don't talk about this, we should, but there are a lot of 80s and 90s guys. I would say that their mindset is like, I need to protect my brand above all. Like I love Hideki Suzuki. Hideki Suzuki is one of the best catch wrestlers ever. That is Hideki Suzuki's mindset, which is understandable in Japan. But Danielson, his mindset is like, I'm going to help put as many people over as I can, because that is how wrestling evolves. That's how wrestling grows. We talked about with Cesaro. Danielson's last moments on SmackDown were trying to put over Cesaro. We know what happened with that, but Danielson still tried. And
I would assume if Claudio comes over to AEW, he'll make sure to do the same thing in AEW.
Yes,
without a doubt.
But so Danielson gave Kingston a lot, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but Danielson also gave 3 really, really good young guys a lot.
Yeah.
But back to Revolution, Danielson and Mox are bonding in the ring because it's Danielson and Mox pretty much like brothers that never get along.
Yeah.
And then William Regal, who we're going to talk about more in a little bit, comes out and he puts his hands on both of them. He like slaps both of them.
Yeah.
And because it's
William Regal, which is basically the initiation into the BCC.
Because Moxley and Danielson, they don't have a lot in common. They do, but like they don't.
Yeah.
But there's one person they expect.
They're total opposites, basically.
Yeah, there's one person they expect above all, and that's William Regal.
Yeah, that's the thing they have in common.
Yes. And William Regal made them shake hands, and now they're the Blackpool Combat Club. Kingston wasn't a fan though, but that's a different story. But yeah, and so because we didn't talk about the original promo that started this all, we just kind of jumped into it. But the original promo was Danielson and Moxley making an alliance to help the younger guys. Yeah, and he name dropped 3 in particular: Wheeler Yuta, Lee Moriarty, Daniel Garcia. Get Daniel Garcia away from Chris Jericho, please.
Yeah, immediately. Please, Tony. I swear to God.
But in between the Moxley match and the promo in the Moxley match, Bryan Danielson put on clinics with all these guys.
Yeah.
And we all know how good they are. But
we all know how good.
We all know how good they are. Like we watch the indies, we know how good they are.
Yeah.
But to the AEW fans, I think that helped make them.
Oh, for sure. Especially Wheeler Yuta.
Wheeler Yuta is a made man. He's one of the.
After, I think what Tony Khan said after that Moxley match is true. A star was born in Boston last Wednesday.
Yes.
Moxley was able to make Wheeler Yuta look like a fucking star. That was his Steve Austin Bret Hart moment.
Yes. And we all know that William Regal also, talking about William Regal again, William Regal also tried to put up the young guys. Like that was what NXT
Yeah.
was. And even before then, when he had like Tajiri with him, like, let's be
Yeah.
honest, no one in that time period of WWE, because
Knew who Tajiri was.
yes, because like
Unfortunately.
Vince's thing was you can't have an accent. You can, but you have to be a villain.
Yeah.
So if it's hard to understand you, you can't. So William Regal was like, "All right, put me with." I don't know if he said that. Vince was just like, "Hey, this will be funny," but very much William Regal was with Tajiri, and he helped make Tajiri to the WWE audience, and then he helped NXT. Also, put William
Yeah.
Regal on commentary more often, please.
Yes. And I love that he calls Excalibur the man in the mask every time. It pops the shit out of me.
Yeah. But back to the anatomy of a wrestler with Bryan Danielson. William Regal and Bryan Danielson have the same mindset that like
Yeah.
they have technical wrestling and they know how to put people over.
Yeah.
Because like
And they're both real mans.
we have talked about how Bryan Danielson is one of the GOATs. But he's also very good at putting people over because again, that is his mindset. He did not come from I'm just gonna focus on myself. He knows how good he is. He doesn't have to worry about his spot. His spot is there for whenever he wants it.
Yeah, no matter which promotion he goes, Bryan Danielson is going to be a top guy.
Yeah.
Even if he goes back to ROH for a little bit, he'll be pure champion.
Yes.
As soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, no. Yura has that pure champion for right now, but yes.
Yeah, but I you know what I mean? Like, like the original ROH title.
Yeah. That match needs to happen, like we talked about before.
Yeah. And it has to be in ROH.
Yes, it does. But yeah, back to where we are right now. Danielson and Moxley and Regal mentoring Wheeler Yuta, and hopefully, like we talked about, like Samoa Joe gets Gresham and Moriarty, and we have a six.
Yeah.
You know, another 6-man that was teased on Twitter that I want. FTR and Punk versus these three.
Yes.
That
or the one that I saw was FTR, Punk, and Brett.
No, they were managed. That was FTR and Punk managed by Brett versus Yuta and Blackpool Combat Club. It was kind of like because Regal and Brett are not going to get in the ring right now. That's not going to happen.
At least for now.
Yes. But yeah, there was because FTR has teased Brett as the manager.
Yeah, which I can't wait for that. That pop for Brett is going to be huge. If he does come in.
Yeah, it's the Owens in May, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of options in AEW for Bryan Danielson, and I think if he's not on people's GOAT list, he's on the short. He's on top 10.
On the honorable mentions for sure. He's definitely on the Mount Rushmore. If he's not, he's either 5 or 6.
Yeah, and I think he said this is his last full-time contract, so we'll see how high he goes because there's options for good matches.
And it's the same thing for Punk. This is his last full-time contract.
Yes.
Before he goes to write more comics and stuff.
But I mean, we're gonna get Omega Danielson too whenever
whenever Omega is ready to come back.
And not a minute.
We'll get Omega Punk at some point.
Yes, and
that's gonna be very good.
Like I know we talked about it before, but the minute Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, and CM Punk all step into the same ring together, that is gonna be a moment.
Yeah, that's gonna be. That should be a cool 4-way. Daniels, Joe, Punk, and Danielson.
Yeah, Danielson needs to.
That would be literally the Mount Rushmore of Ring of Honor.
Yes,
in the same ring. We need to see that.
Yeah, and 2 of those 4 are getting inducted to the ROH Hall of Fame.
Actually, all 3.
Yeah. Punk, sorry, 3 of 4.
And Joe.
Yeah, 3 of the 4. No. Daniel's probably on his way soon.
Yeah, he'll be next year.
Yeah.
Him and Kazarian.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we spent a great deal of time talking about making the case why Bryan Danielson is probably one of the greatest wrestlers of the 21st century.
Yeah.
Yeah, because his psychology, he's probably one of the best technical wrestlers to ever grace. Speaking of which, this is my this is my monthly pitch for TK to send Bryan Danielson to Noah, so I can see him with Smarufuji, I can see him with Satoshi Shiozaki, but most importantly,
Yeah.
so I can see him and Nakajima kick each other out. I don't know how to put it, but
kick each other's ass.
yes, exchange kicks with each other. I'm trying not to curse because I'm fasting. But yes, so Bryan Danielson back in Japan is a must. And also, if you're gonna have him in Japan, maybe send him to New Japan and have him in Kenta run back.
Yeah,
because that run in Noah back in the day when he was in ROH, that Kenta match was amazing.
Bryan Danielson versus Kenta is one of the best matches. I hope we get to see that again in AEW.
Yes,
like this version of Kenta versus Bryan Danielson would be very interesting, especially because they were both in different times of NXT.
Yeah,
they were both treated differently in WWE.
Kenta talked about that.
Kenta was Kenta's WWE run should be a whole episode in itself.
Yeah.
Like it's an interesting time in Kenta's career. Yeah. But I'll say this. Kenta versus Punk has to happen at some point.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings me to my point to close out the show, where we discussed Bryan Danielson and also talk about Kenta, Punk, Joe, Kingston, William Regal, Dean Malenko, Brie Bella apparently somehow, and a bunch of other people that have nothing to do with Bryan Danielson. What
of course, you have to mention Brie.
Yeah. What are your top 5 matches for Bryan Danielson in the future?
In the future,
Indies, Impact, AEW, Noah, New Japan, DDT, bring Takashita.
I'll say Danielson versus Gresham right off the bat in ROH. I would say Danielson versus Joe has to happen again. We need Danielson versus Punk again. Danielson against Kenta, but that could be New Japan or AEW. It doesn't really matter. It's not really one match, but I would love to see Danielson in the G1. I don't know, really. There's so many options.
Yeah.
If Danielson versus Jay White would be good.
Yeah. My 5, Danielson versus Gresham, obviously. Danielson versus Nakajima, which I've mentioned multiple times. I really need that match. TK, please help me.
Yeah.
Danielson versus Alex Shelley would be amazing, but Alex Shelley's going to be doing a hell of an indie run, which we should get into soon. But because
them two in Glory Pro together would be very good.
Yes.
Also, I gotta get an honorable mention on my end. Danielson versus Johnny Gargano. It has to happen.
Yeah. Yes. Danielson versus Kenta. That was who. Kenta. And another indie name. Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. Like that match has to happen. So yeah, those are my 5.
Danielson versus Blake Christian should be another good one.
Yes. I have so much to talk about with Blake Christian, but that's a whole indie episode. But yeah, I think we talked about all that we can.
We talked about his whole career. Yes. We talked about Brie Bella. We talked about Joe Punk. We talked about
Kingston.
Yeah, we talked
LAX.
Yeah. Which, by the way, shout out to Diamante.
Yes, again. So I guess we're signing off now. As always, I'm Daniel. That's Sam. You can find me at DJ Wrestling Fan.
You can follow me at SamDubWrestle. You can follow the podcast at Squared Post Pod.
Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time.